This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed-sponsored jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
I am Nicole Khalil, and you're listening to the This Is Woman's Work podcast, where together we're redefining what it means, what it looks and feels like to be doing woman's work. From boardrooms to studios, kitchens to coding dens, your street to Wall Street, we explore the multifaceted experiences of today's woman. So, yeah, we cover a lot of topics, from decoding your dreams to having a good death, from burnout to breakthroughs, from skincare to trauma. But there are a few topics we come back to again and again, things like confidence, purpose, and leadership. Because if we're serious about redefining anything, we need as many women as possible at the tables where decisions are being made. And I also know that when we do episodes about leadership, some people tune out. They think, I'm not a CEO, I don't have a team, I'm not in charge of a P&L or a PowerPoint. But here's the thing. Leadership isn't just a title. It's how you show up in your relationships, in your communities, in your choices. It's how you influence the spaces you're in, whether that's the boardroom, the dinner table, or even your group chat. So when we talk about leadership, we're not just talking about how to be a better boss. We're talking about how to be a better you. Because every one of us has something that gets in our way. The self-doubt, the overthinking, the people-pleasing, the if I want it done right, I got to do it myself. The head trash that whispers things like, you're not ready, or you don't belong, or if you don't fix it, it'll all fall apart. But what if the thing standing between you and your next level isn't your workload or your boss or your circumstances? It's a few hidden beliefs that you've been told or sold about who you have to be in order to succeed. We're diving into why it's so hard for leaders, for humans, to get out of our own way with the 7 hidden leadership blockers that keep us stuck, and how to finally break through those things that hold us back. Because leadership, like confidence, like woman's work itself, isn't about controlling everything on the outside. It's about transforming what's happening on the inside, which is exactly what today's guest helps people do. Muriel Wilkins is the founder and CEO of Paravis Partners, a renowned executive coach and trusted advisor to C-suite leaders. She's the author of Leadership Unblocked, Break Through the Beliefs That Limit Your Potential. And you may also know her as the host of the Harvard Business Review podcast, Coaching Real Leaders, one of Apple's top management podcasts. So, Muriel, I'm thrilled you're here, and I want to make sure we have time to talk about the 7 hidden blockers that you identified. But before we do, I have to start by acknowledging that the vast majority of us want to be good leaders. So what's getting in our way? Why is it so hard?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nicole, first of all, thank you for having me here. I am delighted to be speaking to you about this and being with your community. So let me make a little bit of a distinction even in that question, right? So I think that there is a difference between being a leader. So when one thinks about how can I be a better leader, there's a distinction between being a leader and actually leading. Just like there's a difference, just because somebody is a parent does not mean that they are parenting, right?
Right.
And so I when we talk about leading, What has struck me and why it's important to people to understand, like, what might get in their way is that if they're not able to lead the thing that is actually completely in their control, that is with them every day, that is, in my view, probably their biggest laboratory and practice ground for leading, which is themselves, in what way are they gonna actually have the capacity to lead another person, to lead a peer, or to lead 10, 20, hundreds, and in my case, with some of the folks that I work with, thousands of people? So I think the thing that tends to get in the way of leading, quite frankly, yes, there are obviously always external factors and challenges that we face. Those things are not gonna go away. So the thing that really kind of gets in our way to meet our potential is ourselves, our ability to lead ourselves, that interview, as you mentioned before. That to me is probably the lowest hanging fruit, quite frankly, and yet the one that folks tend to reach to the least.
Yeah. I also think we live in a world where we're taught a lot about how to look like a leader,
Mhm.
executive presence, or how to look confident, and maybe not as much about how to lead ourselves and how to have these sort of, I don't know if difficult conversations is the right term, but with our own self.
With
So,
ourselves. Yeah.
can you give us some examples of some things that start on the inside and have external consequences when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, and Nicole, it's fascinating that you actually brought up the term executive presence, and we're taught about that. My first book, which was back in 2013, and after that, I swore I would never write another book, right? Was actually about executive presence. And fast forward to now, what I realize is, yeah, you can do the external things, you can try to say the right things, use the right body language, but if your internal game, your mindset is not aligned with those external actions, it's not sustainable. That's why I do not agree with the term, or the saying, fake it till you make it. It,
Yeah.
it doesn't really work. You're not going to make it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to break that news. And so the part around sort of looking at what's on the internal, it's no different than if you have a car, right? You don't just look at, "Oh my gosh, something is not, my car's not driving as fast as I would like. That's what we want it to happen." Or my car is not, warming up the way that I would like, or the AC isn't as strong as would like. You don't just walk around on the outside of the car, and look at what's happening, you or somebody else, but really, I mean, again, I would love for all of us to have more agency. I'm trying to get my daughter to learn how to fix her car. You pop up the cover and you look inside and you flash the light in on the engine and you say, what's going on, right? And the same goes with us. We are a system. We are probably, it's so interesting to me when we lead, we think about leading outwards, but we ourselves are a system, a mental, emotional, and physical system. And so we have to be able to look on the inside as well, not just physically, right? We tend to do that with the doctor. If something's physically wrong, we look on the inside, they do blood work, etc. But in terms of how we feel and how we think, that also drives our actions. We ought to be able to flash a light on that and say, okay, in what way am I thinking that then leads to how I feel, that then drives my action? Because if I want different results, I can't just impact them through my actions. I need to sort of look under the hood and look at how I think about what I do to then make a difference in what I do.
As you were talking, the word authenticity kept popping in my
Mm,
head for a lot of reasons. I do think that there is quite a bit of research that shows that people are craving and desire that from
mhm,
other people. I think it's really exhausting to do anything inauthentically or to try to do it
mhm.
the way somebody else would do it. And to your earlier point about fake it till you make it, it doesn't work. It's, again, exhausting. I have a reframe of that. I say choose it until you become it. Like when we think
I
about
love that.
confidence, it's don't fake it, choose it until the feeling catches up and
Mhm,
all of that. So your book talks about 7 common hidden blockers.
mhm.
I'm assuming they're mostly internal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that it makes sense or that we have the time to go into all 7 at a deep level. Would you mind
Sure.
giving us an overview, and then maybe we can dive into a few?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I can take a step back and even talk about what do I mean by hidden blocker,
Yeah,
right? What are
please.
they? And so what they are basically the beliefs that we carry. And what are beliefs? People think beliefs are these hard and fast truths, right? Breaking news. They are not. I talk about beliefs or think about beliefs as like the clouds, right? I'm looking out my window here and there's a big sky. You are the sky and the clouds are the belief. This is what I taught my kids. And so what does that mean? The clouds are malleable, they change, they come and they go. And you can also, when you look at clouds, you can decide, what shape they take, right? And so the same goes with your beliefs. And what your beliefs are is they are your interpretation of whatever it is that's happening in front of you. Now, why is that important? What you believe or what you think about what's happening in front of you is going to impact how you respond to it and how you act on it. All right. So when it comes to leading, depending what you believe or assume about yourself, about the other folks that you're leading, or about the situation that you're in, is going to drive, again, how you act and ultimately the outcomes you're going to get. And so when I look at individuals who want to lead effectively, there are certain outcomes that they want. They want to be able to get the work done. They want the people to be engaged. They want to be able to level up in terms of responsibility. They want to not be burned out, right?
Right.
And so I looked at, well, what are the beliefs that tend to get in the way of a leader being able to do all those things effectively? And when I looked across 300 of them, 300 of leaders that I had worked with directly, these were the 7 that I name are the ones that bubbled up to the top. That's not to say they're the only ones, but they're the ones that surface in this sample that I looked at. And so an example of 1 or 2, they're so, Nicole, they're so quiet, we don't even realize we have them because they're so habitual, because they have helped us. The problem is they may not be helping us in the leading capacity that we're in today. So one that is very, very prevalent is the belief that literally says to you, I need to be involved. And so what is the cost of that? The cost is, and what does it look like? What it looks like is you're in all the meetings, you're asking to be copied on all the emails, you want to weigh in on every decision, you want to be engaged on every project, and what is the cost of that? The costs are threefold. One is you cannot take on more responsibility. So this belief serves somebody very well when they have one job to do. It does not
Uh-huh.
serve them well when they now have a gazillion jobs to do. And oh, by the way, they're managing a lot of people. So when I was an individual contributor, it served me well. But now that I'm running a business and I'm running a firm, it does not serve me well to be involved in all the things. The second cost is that it gets in the way of developing others. Because if you're involved, it's no different than parenting, right? If you are involved, we know it as helicoptering, right?
Right.
Your kids, if you're involved in everything having to do with your kids, well, what are you doing? You're actually stunting their development and you're creating what the research shows is called learned helplessness. They're not going to do it on their own because they know you're going to swoop in and do it for them. Same happens in the workplace. Okay. And then the third thing that it leads to a lot of times is burnout because you literally hit this physical wall of not being able to be involved in all the things. And all of that, the actions that you take, the wanting to be in all the meetings, wanting to review all the work, wanting to be copied on all the emails, being in all the things is driven by some script that you have that's basically saying, I need to be involved in this and that and all the things.
Yeah.
And so that is an example of one of the beliefs of the 7 and the cost that it can create in terms of your leading capacity.
So, great example. I'm curious your thoughts on this. That particular belief,
Mhm.
I wonder if it's getting in the way of women choosing or getting into leadership, even in the first place. So, obviously, it's getting in the way of being a leader. But a lot of times in my career, I've seen women with leadership abilities and talent and doing really well. And when approached with the idea of taking on a leadership role, they shy away from it. And it's the last thing I need is more to do, right?
Yep.
I'm barely holding it together now. I can't add more to my plate. And
Yep.
I'm curious if you see this belief as even a
It
detractor.
can. It,
Okay.
it it certainly can. And by the way, I never, one of the things that I try to stay away from is kind of creating archetypes, right? Because this belief can look different from person to person. But one of the ways that it can look, particularly for women, as you said, is that they will shy away because they're like, I can't take on more. What they don't understand is the more has been defined because they haven't really prioritized where they need to be involved. And that is all something that, quite frankly, it's not like these beliefs came out of the blue. Particularly as women, a lot of times, depending on the society that you were brought up in or the type of family you were brought up in or, even the type of school you went in, sometimes we're, as you said, sold, we're conditioned to be this way. I know I grew up in a family where my mom did everything. I mean, there wasn't anything my mom could not do. She sewed all our clothes. We had a gourmet dinner every single day. She, when she could, she would go out and work. Quite frankly, if my dad, they came from a very old traditional family. If my dad had, quote unquote, allowed her, she would have probably gotten a job too outside the home. She raised 4 kids and she made it look so easy. So, was there any sort of doubt that when I grew up and this is what I learned is what it looks like to be a woman, that I was like, yeah, I need to do all the things. I can do all the things. So, I'm going to do all the things. But that's okay, but that's not leading. And it
Mhm.
certainly has an effect. So I see it as, yes, getting in the way of taking on more because you're concerned that you can't. And what I also see, Nicole, is you do move into that leadership role and you approach it in that same way. And what I hear from some of my female clients around that is that, guess what? Everybody loves them that they do this, right? And they're
Right.
known as the mother, mom,
Yeah.
of the group. And they're like, I'm tired of being the mom. And I'm like, yeah, you're not really here to mommy. Like that
Right.
happens outside of here. You're here to lead.
Yeah.
Those two do not have to. I mean, might be some intersection, but you don't have to have the same approach here at work. Okay. And so it can get in the way whether you don't step up or even if you do step up.
Pure hydration has made a big difference for me, and apparently for JJ too, who is not only drinking more water, she's also giving away half her packets to teammates like she's running some sort of underground hydration ring. Honestly, I'm just glad they're drinking water, which is why I'm really excited to try Pure Energy. It's a plant-based energy drink mix with natural caffeine and electrolytes, so you get the boost and the hydration without the shakes and the jitters. With no added sugar or artificial junk, Pure Energy delivers a refreshing boost you can feel good about. I'm planning to use it during my afternoon slump when my brain really thinks it's time to be done for the day. And if it's anything like their hydration packs, I know it's going to be a game changer. And here's a bonus. Cure is FSA HSA approved, so you can use your FSA or HSA funds to stay hydrated and boost energy the smart way. For This Is Woman's Work listeners, you can get 20% off your first order at curehydration.com/woman's work with code woman's work. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know you heard about Cure right here. It really does help support the show. So don't just drink more water, upgrade it with Cure. Sex is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and mastered. Bet you never thought about it like that, right? Because somehow, somewhere, women were told we're supposed to magically know everything about sex, intimacy, desire, and pleasure. All, of course, while looking goddess-like. Meanwhile, nobody expects us to pick up a violin and play without a single lesson. And that's why Beducated exists. Think of it as the masterclass library your sex ed should have been. Over 150 courses created by top experts on everything from building real intimacy to exploring new territory. Whether you're thinking, I want more connection, or I want to change things up, or I just want to stop second-guessing what I'm doing, Beducated has you covered. And because it's December and it's so freaking cold, here's your chance to turn up the heat in the best way. Sign up for Beducated at Beducate.me and use code WOMAN'SWORK to get 50% off the yearly pass locked in for life. Yes, forever. It also comes with a 14-day money-back guarantee, so it's completely risk-free. Click the link in show notes, get Beducated, and make this winter your hottest one yet.
The Who's Down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. I think often we're celebrated and praised for handling everything, doing it all, being it all, having it all, the whole deal. And it comes at a cost. Burnout, leadership ability, all of that. Okay, so I'm reminded too of the phrase as you were talking, what got me here won't get me there.
That's right.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more. I need to be involved is one of them.
Yes.
What are some of the others?
Okay, so another one that I see, I'm going to sort of tap into the ones that I see in particular kind of get exacerbated with women. Because, by the way, when I looked, I did not see a difference in terms of like, oh, certain gender have these beliefs and other genders have a different belief. That wasn't the case at all. They were pretty universal. I think where they come from might be a little different. How they manifest themselves might show up a little different. And then how they are exacerbated might show up a little different. So one of the ones that women tend to relate to a lot is the I can't say no. Right. And again, what's fascinating to me about this, Nicole, is, none of what I share in the book, whether it's these beliefs or all the other theses behind it, are new, right? In fact, what inspired me to write this book is that I see a lot of this language and a lot of this being unpacked in other circles, parenting circles, relationship circles, all those things. But in the workplace, we don't talk about things like beliefs, right? We don't talk about it. So the I can't say no, quite frankly, if it's happening for you outside of work, if you're feeling this at home, you can't say no to your kids, you can't say no to your partner, you can't say no to your friends. If you've read all the books on boundaries and you still can't say no, right? You're still feeling like you're doing everything for everybody else, but nobody's doing anything for you. There's a high chance it's probably happening for you at work as well. And so one of the things is to try to understand, where does this belief of I can't say no come from? Right? Because you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. There's a belief that drives that. That you're saying yes and taking on the more things doesn't come from a place of just that's what I'm going to do. There's a belief that drives it. So what we really need to understand is, in some way, I can't say no, or saying yes to everything that's asked of you is grounded in a need that you have. And we all have three fundamental human needs, all of us. The need to feel worthy, the need to feel connected, and the need to feel safe. And so one of the things to ask yourself is, or when I work with clients is, when I say yes, right? What does that do for me? Does it make me feel more connected to the other person? Does it make me feel more valued? Does it make me feel more safe, because then nothing bad will happen? And vice versa. If I were to say no, what am I concerned is going to happen? Is the person not going to like me anymore? Or are they, are we going to now be disconnected? They're not going to want to have a, quote unquote relationship with me. Is it that I feel that, I'm not going to be valued here anymore? Right. So you got to weigh that out. And the issue is that many times we say yes because we're nurturing one of those needs, not recognizing that in this new situation, that need isn't necessary. Right? The connection is already there or established, or I am already adding value. In fact, I add more value by saying no because I'm prioritizing something else. Or, I'm good at my job. The job is good. Like I'm safe. Nothing bad is going to happen. Nothing catastrophic is going to happen if I say no. And so that's what we need to really sort of be more conscious of is, but in what way is this belief helping me or hindering me in this particular situation? These beliefs are not good or bad. They have served you very, very well. All I'm suggesting is that you choose them intentionally, because then you have range and agency to then determine what is the best operating assumption to use in the particular leadership situation that I'm in.
Really like how you pointed out that these are grounded in a need. I don't think I've ever heard it framed
Hmm.
that way. And as you were going through it, I can tell you probably 80% of the time where I defaulted to yes when I really wanted to say no or not yet, or maybe let me think about it,
Hmm.
falls for me in that first category of wanting to be worthy or prove that I was worthy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if for many of us, it's certainly not all of us, but a lot of women, I think we've been socialized to be people pleasing, to be the go to be like our moms who somehow said yes to everything and made it look effortless,
Hmm.
to be polite, to be nurturing. Any
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Yes to all of it, right? Yeah, and so this is not to sort of beat up, what's happened to us in the past. We're all informed by our past and our
Right.
how we grew up, our schooling, all of those things. We're all informed by it, and so it's not to beat that up. It's to just understand it so that we can actually give it grace to say, "Oh, okay, that's why you say this. Oh, all right, sweetheart, I get it. But you know what? You're not that 5-year-old or you're not that 20-year-old or you're not, whatever. You're here now, being a badass in this job. You don't have to use the same approach." And so, like,
Right.
I think about myself and I share this story in the book. I grew up in a family where obligation was the name of the game. You said yes to your family. You said yes. And there was, as I understand it now as a 55-year-old, but as a 5-year-old, the way I understood it was that if you say no, the way my brain computed it back then was if I say no, my sisters might not like me, or, mom will be disappointed with me, or dad will be disappointed with me. So well, of course, what do I want as a 5-year-old? I wanna be part of the tribe, and so I say yes. Well, then that continues, right? Versus understanding that as we adult and as we mature, we build capacity to be able to respond to things in different ways and recognize that what we might have held as truths, quote unquote truths, when we were 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, even, aren't necessarily the truths or the beliefs that we need to carry today. And so I do think that, in all cases, whether you're a woman, a male, or what ethnicity you're from, it is valuable to look at what are the assumptions that I make about myself, about others, about my context that are actually mine, that I have formulated, that I have kicked the tire on, versus the way that you beautifully, introduced it as I've either been told or I've been sold. And again, it's not to say that all the things you've been told and sold you now need to throw out with the trash. Absolutely not. But what you have the power to do, and I believe this is actually what agency is that you have the power to actually choose whether
Mhm.
that's the one you want to keep hanging on to, or whether there's another one that works beautifully for you now, or to hold both and then decide, at any given moment, which one is going to serve me or the purpose that I'm serving best. And that's the one that I'm going to go with for that particular situation.
Yeah. So basically, lift the hood and get a little curious.
That's love it. Thank you. Yes, be
Um,
curious.
Easier said than done, right? But yes.
Yeah, I mean, I challenge that a little bit because look, I'm trying to work myself out of a job, right? Like this is what I do with my clients is to help them kind of get more curious, and I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going back and sort of healing what's happened. I just want them to understand that that's there as long as they know it's there, and to look at today and say, okay, so like what do I do, right? How do I plan moving forward? And so they think, oh my gosh, yes, it takes a lot to like it actually doesn't. It actually doesn't. The work is in recognizing it. But then once you recognize it, it's a simple act of saying literally, okay, I had an example this past week. I had to go to some big event and I was like, "Ugh, I don't really want to go. I'm not sure." And it took me a couple of minutes. And I said, Muriel, what is the assumption that you're making about yourself, the others, and the event that is making you feel like you don't want to go? And very quick, I got curious, right? And I was like, "Oh, I think that I'm gonna go and I'm not gonna like the people there." Well, how the heck do you even know, right? Or I think I'm gonna go, and then I was like, and then like, who am I to be there? Which came up one of the beliefs that I have, I don't belong here. So when I drilled down, I was like, I don't know if I really belong there. Now the magic happens in the reframe, right? The reframe was well, you got an invitation to go. So,
Right.
why would you not belong, right? And you know what? As long as you stay out of that room, yeah, you don't belong. But the minute you're at the event, you belong. You're there. Okay. Okay. So, what if I decided, or what if my belief was I do belong there? What would I do? What actions can I take that will then reinforce that belief? Oh, you know what I can do? I can look on the attendee list to see if there's anybody there that I know already, so that when I go, it will help me even more feel that sense of belonging. That's exactly what I did. And the
Mhm.
whole time I was there, I just kept looking around the room and I kept saying to myself, "Yep, I belong here because I'm here." And here, so I'm gonna go talk to this person. And me, the introvert. So it does not take that long. It literally took a few minutes for me to recognize. That's the part that's hard. It's to recognize why am I feeling this dissonance, this tension right now? And let me get curious.
Yeah.
It takes work to get there, but once you're curious, you're good.
Well, that was a mini coaching session for me because I am an extreme introvert. And every time I have engagements, whether they be speaking engagements or an event that I'm going to, I spend multiple days before going, why did I say yes? Is there a way, secretly hoping I break my leg so I have a reason to not go, right? Like this is, and I do this and then I go and it's wonderful. It's amazing. And I'm like, I should do this more. And then
Yeah.
I repeat the pattern. So I get to
Yeah.
lift my own hood and get a little curious
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
And Nicole, what I love about what you just said too is and I do the same thing. I'm like, well, maybe they'll cancel it, right? Maybe, when my kids were younger, I mean, I felt bad. I'd be like, okay, I really don't want them to get sick, but maybe if they have a little sniffle, I can cancel. And I can't go. And here's the thing with that, right? We tend to, when we feel challenged or things are difficult or there's something we don't want to do, again, feeling that dissonance, like something is off, we are waiting and hoping and crossing our fingers that something on the outside changes, like the situation changes or the other person changes, so that then we can regulate,
Yeah.
and feel okay. Well, you know what? Here is my thing. If you really want to be efficient, and I had to learn this the hard way. That's why I wrote the book. I'm like, I don't want it to be this hard for everybody else. And I learned the hard way with my clients too. If you really want to be efficient and you want to increase the probability and possibility that you will feel okay, stop waiting for the circumstance on the outside and for other people to change. You figure out what you can do on your end to
Right.
change your response or to broaden or diversify your response to the exact challenge or situation that you are reticent to face. And that's what makes the difference.
A great reminder that we are all responsible and the sense of able to respond, right? We have choice in and how we interact with all the
Mhm.
things that we said yes to.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, there are times when even the I can't say no, when I get on the other side and I've actually said yes, and then I'm like, "Oh my god, why did I say yes?" I I literally then I switch to "Well, you said yes."
Yeah.
You know? You're
Yeah.
here now, you said yes, so what do you wanna do? Resist the fact that you said yes? No, you're in it. So, how do you wanna respond to what's happening now?
Muriel, we did. I need to be involved. I can't say no. I don't belong here. Is there any one last that might be
Mm.
nuanced or different for women that we should?
Yeah, I think there's the "I can't make a mistake" is a
Ugh,
is a big one, right? And we all know what that looks like, right? It's literally the often known as the perfectionist, although I think that there's different shades to that. The I can't make a mistake when I would go back to what is the need that it fulfills. Oftentimes it's a need to feel safe, right? Because there's some story we're telling ourselves that if we make a mistake, all hell's gonna break loose, that we will not be quote unquote safe.
right.
Where we need to kick the tire here is there's different levels of safety, okay? If I prick myself with a little needle, it might hurt, it might be like, "Ouch," but I'm not gonna die, I'm fine, I'm safe. But if I cut myself with a huge kitchen super sharp blade and I cut myself in a particular part of the body, well, yeah, now I'm not safe. The issue is when we start sort of calibrating everything as unsafe or all hell's going to break loose, which is not the case. And what I find is that the folks who carry this belief also carry an underlying belief, which is that if they do make a mistake, they will not be able to come back from it. And that is not always the case. That is not always the case. I'm not saying that you should be reckless and just go and make a ton of mistakes, but be able to modulate and calibrate which ones are the ones of the highest risks that, quite frankly, you would not be able to come back from, and like really kick the tire and be realistic about that, and recognize the ones that you'd be able to come back from. You may not like it. It might not be comfortable. And guess what? That's okay. So, when you talk about confidence, which often this belief gets in the way of, I think it's because people approach it as, I need to know that I'm right in order to do something. I need to know how to do it and what the outcome is in order to be able to move forward. And what I would suggest is that if you have this, belief of I can't make a mistake, you have to sort of redefine what it actually means to be confident, particularly in leading, because what it actually means is not that you know exactly what to do. It's being confident means I know that if I do this, I will be able to deal with whatever the outcome is, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
That's what confidence is. I can deal with whatever happens, right? It's not the confidence in the thing, it's the confidence in your response to the thing.
So what you're saying is completely aligned with what I know to be true and what I believe about confidence. I define confidence as firm and bold trust in self.
Mm.
And trust is not the same thing as knowing. So confidence isn't knowing what to say, what to do, having all the answers. Confidence is trusting that you'll be okay no matter what, that
Mhm.
you can recover on the other side. As you so beautifully said, I just am reinforcing that this completely aligns with what I believe too. And I also curious your thoughts on this.
Mhm.
Isn't part of leadership to teach people how to recover from mistakes and from things that don't go according to plan? If leadership, it would only ever be about teaching people how to interact when everything's going right, then we would never create an environment where it's okay for people to take risks or it's okay for
No,
people
yeah.
to
I
try new
mean,
things.
innovation would stall. There would be no growth in capacity of your people and systems. And so theoretically, it all makes sense. And that what you're saying is actually true. But again, if someone is still relying on the beliefs that made them successful as an individual contributor or made them successful when they first started off, or quite frankly, made them successful in school, because that's where a lot of this I can't make a mistake comes from, right? I mean, you did not get rewarded when you were coming up through school for making mistakes.
Right.
You were rewarded for getting it right. Nobody gets rewarded for getting a 0 on their exam and not getting any of the questions right, right? Your reward, I mean, I would love for and maybe there are schools like this in other places, but again, when my kids were coming up, I used to say, we're not going to look at your grade, okay? And I want to look at the questions you did not get the right answer for. Help me understand what you were thinking as you were answering this question. And what would be so fascinating to me is that sometimes one of my kids in particular would be like, well, this is how I read the question. And I would be like, okay, I can see how you can read it that way. Now, let's talk about the different ways you can read that question. This doesn't happen in the workplace. And yet, this is where innovation happens. This is where growth happens of the individual, right? They recognize there's different ways of looking at it. This is how critical thinking gets cultivated. So you're absolutely right that if we were to define leadership as that, then yes, it would open up the aperture for allowing for more mistakes. Again, not recklessly. You also want to understand that there are some mistakes. If you're my ER doctor, I don't want you making a mistake.
Right. Right.
So there are different levels of risk associated with it, but we have to understand that we have to allow it in some capacity. And what I always say is find opportunities, low risk opportunities for mistakes to be permissible. Because
Yeah.
if not, they're going to happen at the high stakes one, and that's when you don't want to deal with them.
Right. Muriel, I could talk to you all day, but I know you don't have the time for that. So, listener, like me, go get your hands on the book, Leadership Unblocked, available on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Let's keep our local bookstores in business. And you can also find Muriel on her website, murielwilkins.com. We'll put all the links and all the ways to find and follow her in show notes. Muriel, thank you for being here today and for doing this incredible work.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
All right, friend, what I love most about this conversation is that it reminds us that leadership isn't as much about managing people as it is about managing ourselves. It's about noticing the stories that we tell, the beliefs we hold, and the limits we unconsciously accept as truth with a capital T. Because once we see them for what they are, stories, beliefs, limits, we can question them, we can rewrite them, we can choose differently. The work of unblocking isn't about fixing what's wrong with us. It's about remembering what's already right within us. It's about clearing the noise, quieting the doubt, and coming back to the steady, grounded center that knows I belong here. I'm capable. I am enough. So whether you're leading a company or a classroom or a community or just trying to lead yourself through a tough season, this work is yours too. Because breaking through the beliefs that hold us back, reclaiming our power, and leading from a place of courage, curiosity, and confidence, well, that is woman's work.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.